All right, good evening, everybody, and I'd like to say happy Father's Day to all the fathers and out there. And again, for those good fathers, for the fathers that are not that good, and for the fathers who's trying to find themselves, the kids still need you. But again, happy Father's Day. Tonight, we got a great guest. We're gonna learn a lot, but I'd like to make a couple announcements before we go to my guest. One announcement is that we have Mrs. Velta Jones Potter. She's running for city treasurer, and she's having a fundraiser to kick off tomorrow at Evelyn's at 5:30 to 7:30. Velta is having a kickoff 5:30 to 7:30 at Evelyn's, and make sure you're there. Send your checks, give her your support, come talk to her, ask her questions, and if you have any questions, you can find out what's going on with her. Also, we have a ping pong tournament at at Hicks Anderson Center, July the 2nd, and I believe it's at 1 o'clock, and it's my fault because I left the flyers home. But everybody come out. If you think you can play ping pong, we're gonna have the best around. We're trying to get Jack Merkel, the governor, there. He's always making these commercials how good he is, and if y'all see him, let him know that he's gonna have his chance to prove it, especially in the city of Wilmington, because we think we're the best. But tonight, we have a great man here who does a lot of good things in Delaware, and I'm gonna let him introduce himself, and we're gonna ask him some questions. And again, how you doing?
Thank you, Julius, and happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. You know, my family entertained me tonight, and that was very nice. So that was nice. I'm a lobbyist.
Okay.
I've been around a long time, and I'm very blessed and very fortunate. I have a lobbying firm here in Delaware. We represent at any given time probably 40 or 45 clients, somewhere in that neighborhood. I've got my daughter who works with me, and then we have another lady who is full-time with us. So, and then we have an associate. So, you know, it's a very going concern, and you know, we've got small business problems and all of that. But mostly, what we do is public policy within the state of Delaware, and we've been very blessed over years to work on all of the major issues that are before the General Assembly. That's what we do.
Okay. And for the community, I want you to understand something. Back in 2000, 1999, we was working, helping Ruth Ann Minner at the time. She was lieutenant governor. She was running for governor, and it was me, Greg Patterson, and one more gentleman. And we thought we was hot stuff, and we was, you know, going to be with the next governor. We was running. We thought we was running everything, calling, making decisions. And every Tuesday, I would see Bobby Bird and Mike Houghton would go in a room meeting with the governor, and we found out that we wasn't all that. They was running the show, but they made us feel like we was running the show. So,
well, that's just, Julius, that's just because I'm old. You know, Ruth Ann and I go back a long way, and she and I were freshman legislators together back when the dinosaurs walked, and she even worked with my mother in the governor's office before that. So we knew Ruth Ann a long time, and it was one of my pleasures in all the things I've done to help her in all of her statewide races, both lieutenant governor and the governor's race.
okay.
So
Now, before we get, because I know you're working on some big projects, but also you was a state rep for a couple of terms. Can you talk about that for a second?
well, you know, I was very, very fortunate when I was a very young man to get elected to the State House of Representatives from the Ellesmere area. I was a Democrat, and you know, those were very heady times for me. I was elected when I was 25. I lost when I was 29, so when I lost, I still was a political animal, if you will, a policy wonk. So I got involved, and I became the lobbyist for the State Chamber of Commerce for 10 years. And then I started my own firm, and I've been doing that now for over 25 years.
Okay. Also, the community needs to understand something. When we talk about the Port of Wilmington, and we was trying to keep the port thriving and against Kinder Morgan, and you work hard on Kinder Morgan. We work together. Talk about what you're trying to do now for the port or expansion of the port. What's going on in your world in that respect?
Well, there's a lot going on with the Port of Wilmington. As you know, they did a study. The Port of Wilmington actually did a study to take a look at what the potential was for the Port of Wilmington. I have the pleasure of representing Commercial Development Company from St. Louis, which purchased the Claymont Steel site. And You know, they did some preliminary planning up there to see what was the best use of that particular land. It's about 400 acres. As you know, it's right on the river. That's where the old steel plant was. The buildings are in the process of being torn down. There are a number of environmental issues up there that are in the process of being remediated, and you know, that will take a couple of years to do. But one of the things that is a possibility up there is some kind of port on the river. Now, it's a long-term project. It's not going to happen next year. It's not going to happen the year after that. There's a lot of filling that would need to be done, and you know, it would cost a lot of money. But you know, it could be another adjunct to the Port of Wilmington. And we have had meetings with the Port of Wilmington. We've had meetings with the folks who are trying to develop the River Edge property. You know, and what we've said is, if this works for you, you know, if this looks like this can be a potential, then we would certainly be interested in that. Now, having said that, the river side of that property is only about 150 acres. So the rest of that property, the north, what we call the north side, but it would be the land that's between the railroad and I-95, all of that land can be developed for something else. And when it is cleaned up, you know, the owners are actively looking for potential buyers. Maybe a manufacturing facility could go up there. Maybe some big box supply houses. We're not sure. I mean, you know, they're out there soliciting offers. Now, it's first of all got to be cleaned up. I mean, you've got to get the buildings down. You've got to get all that cleaned up. You've got to take care of all the environmental issues. But they're prepared to do that, and we think that will probably take another 2 years. We're about a year into it. But, you know, they're beginning to solicit offers, and, you know, there's a lot of interest in the property. It's obviously got great transportation. You know, it's got 2 interstates that touch the property. It's got good railroad access, and the river's there. So, you know, a lot of it could happen.
Now, what our community wants to know is that even through the cleaning up, are there going to be jobs? That's right now, that's the most important, especially if the government's getting involved. When they do the cleanup and all the things they're doing, will they create jobs for the community?
Well, you're asking me. That's it. Let me comment on that from a very personal, what I think. Okay. As I think you were aware, there's a lot going on at the Marcus Hook complex, the old Sun Oil refinery. They're doing a lot of things there. They're dismantling that refinery. They're going to be putting together a facility that can handle the natural gas coming out of central Pennsylvania. There's a potential for industry around that complex when the gas gets there. Okay, that particular property in Delaware, the Claymont Steel property, in addition to some land that Sunoco owns in Delaware, plus the old General Chemical site, which is the next site coming down the river, and then Lindy, which is a small factory in there. All of those things could be a piece of that development, and that would mean a lot of jobs for Delawareans. Now, having said that, the current coastal zone law is an impediment to all that development, because you can't develop things in the coastal zone if you have shut the facilities down, and you know they've been shut down. They're grandfathered for what they were doing, but there's a very long process that needs to go forward under the current coastal zone law. So our proposal is, and we're working in conjunction with folks at the Chamber of Commerce and a number of industries up and down the coast in Newcastle County. Our proposal is to change the coastal zone. And if you would change the coastal zone and allow redevelopment of those properties, which were industrial before the coastal zone. I mean, they've always been industrial. They were industrial during the coastal zone. They've just now shut down. And as a result of, you know, because of economics and everything else, just like the steel mill. The steel mill was a going concern, but, you know, the steel business didn't work anymore in this country. So, you know. So
what you're saying is that it could happen, but there has to be some things done as far as changing the coastal zone.
Yeah, you've got it. We hear that from people who are coming to look at the facility as a potential buyer and a potential developer of the facility. They're reluctant to do anything and to make a commitment as long as we've got the coastal zone law there.
You know, I can say one thing is that we need jobs. I mean, this community needs jobs, and you're talking about stopping crime, shootings and killings, they need jobs. And, you know, and even what do you think about the port expansion for Wilmington Port and the Newcastle part of it? What do you think? What's your views on that?
Well, I think, you know, as a result of what's happening with the Panama Canal and all of that, the result of what's happening with the deepening of the channel to 45 feet, it's obvious to me that the Port of Wilmington needs to expand. Now, where it expands, you know, I think is going to depend on who's got the private money to invest in it and where do they want to do that, you know, and in my mind, there are 4 sites. There's the site up at Claymont. There's some land, as I understand it, around the port that could be developed. There's the Edgemore site, which is now owned by Comores, was owned by the DuPont Company, which is another loss of manufacturing jobs. I mean, that's a potential, plus the River Edge site. So, I mean, you know, it's, in my mind, it's a matter of, I think there's going to be port expansion. I think those jobs are going to come. I think they're going to come fairly quickly, and by that I mean probably 2 to 3 to 5 years. But it's a matter of where the investment comes and where that investment wants to be in order to do that.
Okay. Now, what can the community do to assist this process? Because again, it's rough, man. I mean, it's really rough and tight.
Look, we have been attempting to change the coastal zone for 2 years, and we haven't gotten traction in the General Assembly. And the coastal zone law, I think, is the biggest impediment to letting this happen. And I'm not talking about a complete repeal of the coastal zone. The coastal zone does wonderful things in Kent County and Sussex County, and even in some areas of Newcastle County. But those sites that were industrial prior to 1971, which was the passage of the coastal zone, those sites that were industrial before that and are now vacant, in my mind, should be allowed to be developed. And that will take a law change.
Okay.
That will take a law change. And we can use some help with that.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. What can the community do? Because again, I mean, it needs jobs. But okay, you said government relations. Explain what government relations are and what are some things that you do to in your everyday process with your company.
It's our responsibility. There's 2 pieces to our business, okay? The first piece is to maintain relationships with the General Assembly, with the Governor's Office, the Cabinet Secretaries, those policy-making decision makers within state government who make the decision. It's our responsibility to have relationships with them, okay? So we know all those folks. The other piece of our business is with our clients, and clients come to us and they say, we would like to do A, B, or C, whatever they want to do. We then go back to the policymakers, be it in the Governor's Office, the cabinet level secretaries, or even division directors and the legislature, and discuss with them what our particular client wants to do, okay? Sometimes those folks will say, yeah, we can do that, okay? Sometimes they'll say, no, we're not going to do that. So we then go back to the client and say, no, we can't get that done, but you know, we're more than willing to try and work something out. So we do a lot of negotiation, we do a lot of hand-holding. We are communicators at the highest level. That's what we do.
Okay. Again, and I'll repeat myself, what can the community do? Because again, Mr. Byrd is not running for office, so he's not here for that. But he's here to explain, like I said, about the ports, expansions, and different things. I want him here so y'all can understand what he's doing and how to help him create jobs for our community and for the state. And
well,
that's what we need.
let me give you another example. Sometimes I can go in and talk to a legislator about whatever it is that the client wants to get done. The legislator said, yeah, that's a fine idea, we'll do that, okay? Sometimes the legislator says, no, I don't want to do that. So then I have to figure out what's the best way to better communicate that message to the legislator so that the legislator, the decision maker, comes my way, okay? And one of the things that we do, and we help do, is coordinate citizen contact on those particular issues with the legislature. So when it comes to jobs and the things that your community's worried about, they ought to be contacting their legislators and their decision makers and the governor and the people on the port board. All of those people ought to be getting citizen contacts from your community.
Okay. Now, you say you talk to them. Do you ever twist their arms or do, take them in the back room and smack them around?
No, we don't.
I mean,
We don't do that.
sometimes they need it, man.
Yeah, no,
sometimes they need a little, smacking around.
we do the best we can to make the best argument we can.
Okay.
And we spend a lot of time developing whatever our story is before we go in and present our story. And we try and make our story as complete and concise as possible. I tried to do that with the coastal zone tonight. I mean, you can get bogged down on a coastal zone discussion with environmentalists for 3 or 4 days. And they can tell you all the things that are bad about it, or all the things of why we don't need a change and everything else. So we have to, in what we do, we have to boil our arguments down and make them very succinct.
Now, we both know politics. Nobody's ever going to touch nothing during election year, environmental. I have never seen it happen during election year. Do you think, are y'all getting any traction?
We're not going to get any traction this year. I thought we would. You know what? We had a meeting at Claymont. I got to think when that was. I think that was last fall. I don't know whether you were there.
I was there, yeah.
You know what?
Yeah,
we had 400 people in that room. And they were all screaming for jobs. And my reaction after that was, if the legislators don't listen to this, they're not going to listen to anything.
So instead of 400, they
what?
might need 800.
Yeah.
I mean, but what I would like to see is that you use this vehicle here and many others to let our community know how to support you when you're talking about jobs for our community.
We will certainly coordinate with you and with your folks. We're going to need. We pretty much got told by a lot of people that they were not going to work on the coastal zone law this year. We've got some promises that they'll work on the coastal zone law when they come back in January. Now, having said that, we've got some issues around that too. I mean, we got a new governor coming in.
Right.
So, I mean, we're going to have to work with the new governor. We're going to have to work with whatever legislators are there, and we already know that there will be some who won't be there. So,
right.
We've got to coordinate all that. But no, I will certainly be in touch with you and your folks because we're going to need a lot of contacts from citizens about the changes in the coastal zone because that's what means jobs. And if you don't do that, if you don't change the coastal zone, in my opinion, and environmentalists say that I'm trying to scare them, but in my opinion, if you don't change the coastal zone, you're not going to develop the Camore site, the old Edgemoor site, and you're not going to develop the site at Claymont. Plus 5 or 6 more that are out there.
And what I want people to understand, I really want people to understand this. The only way we're going to stop these shootings, we're going to get things moving, get our kids educated or trained, is that we must have jobs. We must have training. You know what I mean? I'm definitely into trade. Our kids need to be trained in trade, electrician, carpenter. We need things like that. You know what I mean? We need things that's going to create jobs. And I'm sick of every week these shootings. And I know if people are working, we can eliminate a lot of this problem. So.
I couldn't agree with you more. If I'm proud of one of the things that I've done over all the years I've been involved, I've always been concerned about jobs. And when I was a legislator, I was concerned about jobs and everything I've worked on all these years, from the Financial Center Development Act to me being one of the guys who worked on getting slot machines here. I mean, there's a lot of jobs around gambling, and I'm very proud of that.
Okay. Also, too, again, I just want to make this announcement. Timothy's, the Marvelta Jones fundraiser kickoff is is the fundraiser, I'm sorry, is Monday, June the 20th, 5:30 to 7:30. Please be there down at the riverfront, 9:30, Justin Landing, Wilmington, Delaware, 19. Yes, at Timothy's. You know, I'm getting all kind of signs. And Velta, also, let me just give you a little background on this young lady. Her father was a longshoreman. She
I didn't know
graduated.
that.
Yeah, oh yeah,
I didn't know that.
longshoreman, graduated from Thousand School, but UD. I think she might be the first engineer, African American woman. I mean, I remember when the city was in trouble, and she bailed the city out. They barred her from DuPont. She's done a lot of great things. And again, I'm gonna have her on TV, let her talk about some of the things she's done. But again, a product of longshoremen. We got a lot of people from longshoremen from the city of Wilmington that done great things. So again, tomorrow at 5:30 to 7:30 at Timothy's. If you can't make it, you can drop off your checks, the whole 9 yards. And again, the ping pong tournament is July the 2nd. I believe it's at 1 o'clock. It's going to be outside. And anybody get a chance to see the governor, he always talking, bragging. And that's nothing we want to ask you from the community. We'll help you with the Coastal Zone Act if you can get the governor at the ping pong tournament July the 2nd. But again,
He's probably going to be just like me, and we'll still be asleep from July the 30th on July the 2nd.
But again, I work with Bobby Bird, and he's done awesome work. And again, our community needs to get behind him and support him. We will have him on a lot of times to talk about things that's going to create jobs for our community, because we need them. And again, I want to see training. I want to see trade, because it's important. Everybody's not going to college.
That's right.
Everybody's not going to go to college. Again, what else are you working on? I mean, that you can talk about.
We're working on the casino bill. You know, we'd like to. You know, the casino tax needs to be changed, because you know you've got to recognize that the casinos need to have enough money to put back in there, because so that if you're not keeping the casinos up, if you're not keeping the hotel up, then you're gonna not be as attractive to the gamblers, and you've got to get the gamblers there so that everybody makes money. So, you know, the state has gone after that and been really aggressive on that casino tax in the last 8 or 10 years, and that needs to be adjusted. So we're spending a lot of time working on that.
I know a question I wanted to ask you. Philadelphia just passed the sugar tax.
Yeah.
Do you think it's going to travel?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think. Well, it's not going to travel this year because the legislature.
Oh, not this year, but again, I remember the medical marijuana started in California.
Oh yeah. Well, you know
But
what?
somehow it took the back road, ended up in Delaware.
Well, the sugar tax will be an issue.
I mean, anything seems to be making profit. You're talking about they're going to get what, 50, 60 million a year after sugar soda tax?
Yeah. Well, that's what they're saying. I mean, you know.
Yeah. But again, the medical marijuana started in California. It's almost in every state.
You're going to have a significant change in the revenue measures that this state has, because we don't have enough money coming in from our current tax structure to pay for the services that everybody wants. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but there needs to be a restructuring of the revenue package for the state of Delaware. DFAC meets tomorrow. You know, hopefully we find a little bit more money, but in the long run, you've got to reconfigure exactly the way we collect revenue and the sources we get it from.
I'm gonna give you 30 seconds and I'm gonna wrap it up. Go ahead. Anything you want to say?
No, this has been great. I've enjoyed it. I love doing this, so we'll do it again if you'll have me on.
Oh, no question.
And happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, and good luck to you.
Okay.
So.
Again, we're gonna wrap it up, but again, we want to get behind Bobby Bird and his company to make things happen in Wilmington and the state of Delaware, because we need jobs. The only way we're gonna stop crime is we got to have jobs. Jobs again. Happy Father's Day, and don't forget tomorrow, Timothy's, 5:30 to 7:30 for Velta Jones Potter. Thank you and good night.